Hey guys, this is me, reobebo here, and today I want to talk about my favorite video game storylines. And now, just to make a note, my list of games are not necessarily going to resonate with your list of games, and because this is just a completely opinionated list. This is just all based on my personal opinion. This is not a definitive list on which game storylines were the best, like, of all time. This is just what I thought were the best for me. Like, these were the game storylines that made me think about the game constantly when I wasn't playing, and they also made me constantly think about the game after I played them. And also, just another note, these games are not in any order whatsoever. Like, the first game I'm going to talk about is not like number 10 or anything, and the last game is for sure not going to be number 1 or number 10 or anything like that. They're all in complete random order. And with that out of the way, here's my list. Now, the first game I want to talk about, or game series I want to talk about, is actually the Metal Gear Solid series. And to be honest, the Metal Gear Solid series is one of my favorite game series of all time, if not my, overall my favorite game series of all time. And I just love all the stories in all the games, but my favorite out of the bunch, in terms of storyline, is the first game. And what makes the first game great is that it is complex like the other games, but it's never too complex where it becomes confusing. So the other games did become a little bit confusing at times, but Metal Gear Solid 1 does keep it, nice and complex to keep you interested, yet at the same time you'll never feel that confused in the end. And what makes and the story of Metal Gear Solid is basically you, Solid Snake, trying to track down and kill your brother, Liquid Snake. And at first it sounds like a really simple stealth mission, but really becomes a lot more complex, involving topics such as gene therapy, nuclear war, and just, honestly, you really have to experience it yourself. There's a lot of things to go over in this game, but the game does do a good job in explaining stuff to you, even though it does take a long time, and it does get, it will wear down some players who are not used to long cutscenes, but the game does describe everything nicely, and it does keep me interested. I was always interested to see what happens next, and just after the game was done, I was just interested for more. I just wanted to play the whole Metal Gear Solid series again, since I recently beat the first one again, and I just really want to play the second one just to, completely, get a new perspective on the storyline. So, overall, just great game, definitely recommend it. And it's better to start with the first one, mind you, because if you play on the other games, it will become a lot more confusing for you. So, highly recommend the first Metal Gear Solid game, one of my favorite game storylines of all time. The next game I want to talk about is actually my favorite game of 2012, and that is The Witcher 2. And in The Witcher 2, you start as Geralt of Rivia, and basically there's this assassin who's killing kings, and it's basically you're framed for one of the deaths of a king, and you're supposed to sort of just get yourself out of that situation. And if the game was just left at that, it could have been a really interesting story, which it is, of course, but what makes it just really, really great is the fact that the game world is just absolutely great all around. Most of the game characters you meet have good intentions as well as evil intentions at the same time. And what just really just puts the icing on the cake is the fact that you have to decide between certain groups of people, and they're all gray, so you have to sit back and think before you actually just make a decision. It's not like in games like in Fable or Mass Effect, like you're just basically going to choose the top option if you want to go Paragon, or like the bottom option if you're going to go Renegade. In The Witcher 2, you'll most likely do a mix of these choices because it really just goes back to your like ethics system, I guess you could say. I don't really want to make it sound as deep as it is, but the game just really makes you think for your actions. And in the end, like when you see the ending, you'll just want to play the game again just to see what would happen if you chose a different side. If anything would be better, if anything would be worse. That's what really makes this game amazing. Just one of the best game storylines ever. Like when things really ramp up in the game, they become really exciting. And overall, like this is just one of these games that made me just contemplate what choices I made after I was done. It's really that magical of a game. I absolutely love it. Definitely recommend this game. Like, the game did really well, selling 2 million copies, but I do think this game should actually sell a lot more, so really just give this game a go. You won't regret it whatsoever. Now, with Metal Gear Solid and The Witcher 2 being rather serious games, I think it's great to break the pace with something more silly or wacky with the No More Heroes series. And between the first and second game, I'll just have to talk about both of them because both of them are equally entertaining in my opinion. I mean, in terms of gameplay, I do think the second one's better, but in terms of just storyline, I think both of them are really great. And what makes them, really memorable is not the fact that the storyline is deep, nor the characters like really deep and intricate. It's the fact that this game is just so out there and just its overall purpose is just to entertain you. Like, some of these cutscenes are hilarious. Like, one thing that the game gets really right is the dialogue and the voice acting. I think the dialogue is so out there and crazy, yet at the same time it sort of makes sense within the game world. It's beautiful in my opinion. And what's awesome is just the fact that the voice acting is just really great as well, which is usually something that's sort of hit and miss when it comes to, you know, Japanese games being localized to US, but Ubisoft or whoever localized it did a fantastic job. I mean, I cannot imagine a better voice actor for the main character, Travis Touchdown. I literally think they got the perfect person for him. And it's overall, like, these games are not here to make you like contemplate about life or anything, but they're really just games just to entertain you. And I pretty much can guarantee you that if you play the No More Heroes series, you will be greatly entertained by these cutscenes. I mean, this game's not for everyone, but in my opinion, just if you want to try something new, and it's not even that expensive right now, so if you just want to try something that's unique and different, definitely check out the No More Heroes series. Another game series that I feel is really out there and unique are the Persona games, and especially 3 and 4. And what makes Persona 3 and 4 really interesting is the fact that you're sort of balancing being a high school student by day, but at night you're sort of being this hero trying to save the world, going through dungeons and, you know, finding enemies, leveling up, etc. So that's a really interesting balance, and of course this makes the story really interesting and sort of really hooks you in the beginning. But what makes this game great is just the fact that during the daytime while you're a high school student, you could pretty much do whatever you want. You could hang out with these certain friends if you want to. You could try sort of living the balanced life, trying to go through all the characters as much as you can. You can actually just not hang out with anybody. You could just study or just exercise, you know, throughout the day, or just do a lot of miscellaneous activities. And that's what really makes Persona 3 and 4 really great, is the fact that you sort of mold the story, or you sort of mold, I mean, the story goes sort of in a linear fashion because at nighttime it does go at, you know, you're dungeon crawling through these, you know, basically linear dungeon structure. But during the day though, you do have a complete freedom, so if you want to know this certain character as much as you can, you could. If you don't want to, that's fine. So honestly, this is sort of the game that you sort of make the story yourself. You give the story a certain meaning. So that's what I absolutely love about these games. I love the Persona games. It really got me into the Shin Megami Tensei games, and all of the Shin Megami Tensei games that I've played were awesome. So honestly, I cannot recommend Persona 3 or 4 enough to you guys. They're amazing games. Try and track them down. Once you get hooked, like, it won't let you go. Like, honestly, these games are absolutely addictive, and I can't wait for a 5th one to come out. And these games are just, honestly, they're not only one of the most unique game stories, they're also one of my favorite game stories of all time. Now, the next game I'll talk about actually it's kind of reminiscent of the Persona games, and that's The World Ends With You. And what makes The World Ends With You so great is the fact that, while it's very different from Persona 3 and 4, what they do have in common is the fact that it's sort of a combination between teenage life and fantasy. And I know a lot of JRPGs do start teenagers, but, you know, they're usually placed in this fantasy world. But this one's sort of this combination between real life and fantasy. And with The World Ends With You, you're basically doing this challenge to survive. Like, you basically died, and this week-long challenge, which is done by these weird creatures called the Reapers. And if you just pass their challenges every day for the week, you'll get another chance at life. If you fail, you know, you're dead. And it's a really interesting storyline. It really kept me involved. And what's awesome is the fact that the characters are just really well done. Especially the main character, Neku, or Niku, I believe it's pronounced. But he really does grow through the game. He's really silent at first, but as the game progresses, he really starts to change in personality. And all the other characters you meet are also very unique, yet also at the same time very interesting as well. You really want to know more about these characters. And by the end of the game, like, you're sort of satisfied, yet at the same time there's something like left in the game story that makes you wish that there was a sequel. And I do hope that there's a sequel to this game. This game was absolutely amazing. This is one of my favorite Nintendo DS games of all time, if not one of my favorite portable games of all time. So honestly, just the game's starting to get a lot more expensive. I do hope that I believe it's on iPad and iPod as well, so you know, try getting that as well for a cheaper price. But overall, like, the story is really interesting. It kept me hooked. I love the characters. I just love I just love games that really combine real life, like modern day society and fantasy. And The World Ends With You does a great job at that. So this game is highly recommended, just in terms of storyline and also by gameplay standards. So definitely check this game out. Another game that actually has a pretty unique take on storyline is Suikoden 3. And now, while all the storylines for all the Suikoden games are great in my opinion, Suikoden 3 is my favorite out of the bunch. But just to know, I've never played the second one yet because of its high price point, but anytime it does drop, I will for sure get that game. But what makes Suikoden 3 so great is that you play as 3 completely different characters, and you really get different perspective on the war that is going on within the story. And I really don't want to go over the backstory due to I don't really want to overburden you with a long description. So I did make a review on the game. If you're really that interested in the backstory, you could check it out. It'll really help me as well. So thank you if you do watch it for the backstory. But what makes the game really great, in my opinion, is the fact that the 3 perspectives sort of add like a grayish element to the war. And you get to see the good side of one perspective and the bad side of that perspective. And what's cool is that each character you play as, they each go through like 3 chapters each. So every time you finish with one chapter, you have the chance of trying a completely different character and see how his chapter 1 goes. And it's really unique. It's really different. Considering the fact that this game came out, I believe in 2002, which is pretty impressive for a game this old. And the storyline is just absolutely, it's really interesting. It sort of adds this mystery element to it, to see like who's really starting this war and like what's the goal of the main villain. But once you do find out, it becomes really interesting. The game is really well written. It's also rather cinematic as well for a game that didn't have that high of a budget. It was pretty cinematic as time. Just overall, like, this is just a great game story. Absolutely love it all the way through. If it wasn't for the backtracking, I probably would have loved the story even more. It probably would have been my favorite RPG on the PS2. I mean, it was that great of a game, and just the backtracking brought it down. But just in terms of storyline, this game is absolutely fantastic, and it's a really different take on just storytelling in general. So definitely check this game out.